On the 5th of September 2023, the largest local authority in Europe ran out of money. Birmingham City Council, 1.1 million residents, a budget of £3.4 billion, more than 100 councillors, issued what is called a Section 114 notice. In plain terms, we cannot balance our books. All spending stops, except what the law requires and what protects the vulnerable. Councils in Britain cannot legally go bankrupt. This is the closest thing that exists. The bill that broke it was not a failed investment or a collapsed contract. It was the cost of paying women what the courts had already said they were owed. A liability the council put at up to £760 million, growing by as much as £14 million a month. And behind it sat a second number the council mentioned far more quietly. A computer system meant to cost £20 million on its way past 100. What happened next fell on the people who lived there. Libraries closed, bin collections halved, street lights dimmed, and council tax rose 21% in 2 years. Gone under. How British business dies. Birmingham built itself on doing things at scale. It was the workshop of the world, a city of 1,000 trades, where the Industrial Revolution was assembled in small workshops rather than single great mills. In the 1870s, its mayor, Joseph Chamberlain, bought the gas and water companies for the city itself, cleared the slums, and made Birmingham a model of what a municipal government could be. The phrase for it was the civic gospel, the idea that a great city should own and run the things its people depend on. That ambition survived into the modern era in the size of the thing. Birmingham City Council became the largest local authority in Europe. Schools, social care, housing, refuse, roads, libraries, leisure centres, children's services, a public organisation with a budget larger than several small countries. Running an organisation that size takes two things above all: a payroll system that works and pay rates that are defensible. Birmingham was about to fail at both. The first failure began decades ago, and it was not an accident of bookkeeping. It was discrimination. Birmingham, like many councils, paid bonuses to staff in jobs that were mostly done by men: refuse collectors, street cleaners, grave diggers. Bonuses that could double a wage. Workers in jobs mostly done by women: cooks, cleaners, care staff, teaching assistants, did work rated as equivalent and received no such payments. In 2012, the Supreme Court ruled against the council in a case brought by 174 former employees, mostly women. The council paid out. By the time of the Section 114 notice, Birmingham had already spent around £1.1 billion settling equal pay claims. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. The council kept operating a pay structure that continued to generate new claims. And by June 2023, it was forced to admit a fresh liability of between £650 and £760 million, still accruing at £5 to £14 million every month. The second failure was newer and stranger. In 2018, Birmingham decided to replace its ageing finance and payroll software with an Oracle system, at a projected cost of around £20 million. The implementation went wrong. By 2023, council papers put the cost at around £100 million. Later figures went higher still. For a period, the council could not produce reliable accounts at all. The system meant to tell it what it owed, and to whom, did not work. An organisation spending £3.4 billion a year had lost the ability to see its own finances clearly. By the summer of 2023, the two failures met. In June, the council disclosed the scale of the equal pay liability publicly. In July, it paused non-essential spending. In September, its interim director of finance, the officer legally responsible for the council's financial health, issued the Section 114 notice, reporting that the authority did not have the resources to meet what it owed and no other means of finding them. The immediate budget gap for that year alone was £87 million. The equal pay bill stood at up to £760 million. The council had 1.1 million residents and no way to pay. Central government sent commissioners to take over key decisions. Then came the part the city actually felt. To secure over £1 billion in emergency government loans, Birmingham agreed to find £300 million of cuts across 2 years and sell £750 million of public assets. In March 2024, after a 5-hour meeting and with protesters outside the council house, councillors voted it through. Council tax up 10% that April and 10% again the year after, 21% in total. Cuts to adult social care and children's services, libraries closed, arts funding cut, bin collections reduced, streetlights dimmed, road repairs downgraded to reactive only, meaning the pothole gets fixed when it becomes dangerous, not before. The council leader told the chamber he was under no illusions about what the budget would mean. So who paid? The residents paid first, the highest council tax rise in modern English local government, in one of the most deprived major cities in the country, in exchange for fewer services than before. The women paid twice. First in decades of underpayment, then again as residents of a city cutting its services to afford the settlement. The remedy for the injustice was funded by the people the injustice was done to. The staff paid. Hundreds of jobs went. Day centres for adults with learning difficulties closed. And the officers and executives. The chief executive who had led the council through the Oracle implementation and into the crisis left her £260,000 post in early 2024, reportedly by her own choice. The council leader, who took office in May 2023, remained in position for 2 more years. No individual was found personally liable for the Oracle failure. No one was prosecuted. And the story the public was told may not have been the whole one. Academic researchers who examined the council's own cabinet and audit papers found that the external auditors had not even been given the equal pay calculations until late November, nearly 3 months after the notice that cited their advice, and that much of the headline liability related to possible future claims rather than debts already due. Their conclusion was blunt. The equal pay figure was prominent, and the Oracle disaster was not. The council's commissioners reject that reading and say the Section 114 notice was correct and necessary. What is not in dispute is the arithmetic that landed on the city. Over £1 billion already paid, hundreds of millions still owed, 100 million and rising on a computer system, and a bill sent to 1.1 million people. Birmingham is the episode where the pattern stops being about companies. A private company that fails can be liquidated. Its brand is sold, its staff move on, and the thing ceases to exist. A city cannot be liquidated. The residents cannot resign. When a council runs out of money, the losses are not written off. They are converted into closed libraries, longer waits for care, darker streets, and a larger bill next April. And the failure itself was not exotic. It was decades of paying women less than men for equivalent work, a settlement the council could not fund, and a payroll system that stopped working while the meter ran. Everyone whose job was to prevent that was paid to do it. Nobody has paid for failing to. Because when a British institution collapses, the bill and the blame almost never land in the same place. Next time, a company that put its name on the shirts, the shops and the high street of half of Britain, and was sold for £1, with a pension fund 300 million short. BHS. If you want it, subscribe. New film every Sunday. Gone Under. How British Business Dies.